So much. I will do my best to ease you in from a panel that was full of humanity and inspiration into something that will feel a little bit more academic, but I do hope to impart wisdom and knowledge, and I'll do my best to do that in as powerful a way as I can. I'm Maria. I'll be talking to you today about adaptation as a concept that we observe in nature, and how that concept of adaptation can be applied to leadership as we face into major transformation, major upheaval from a kind of macro planetary level to an industry one. I am an engineer and designer by training. I've worked in the apparel and fashion industry for just under 20 years, and I've held a variety of jobs across the value chain, and I've worked for a variety of companies, some not known at all, some a little bit better known, but I've specialized in sustainability and innovation. So I was most recently the Director of Responsible Innovation at Pangaia, which meant looking after our sustainability department as well as our material innovation and R&D team. But these days, I'm most interested in the interface, in the interaction between humanity and nature. Innovation is not a uniquely human concept. Through adaptation, nature is constantly inventing ways to exist and survive. And Darwin, who of course coined the term adaptation as he observed phenomena in nature, had one core insight, and that was that what it takes to survive is not to be the most intelligent or the strongest, but to be the most responsive to change. And you can think of adaptation as this. Adaptation is the most successful response to a changing environment. It is a form of natural intelligence, and as a concept, it is incredibly powerful. And so I will bring this to life with one example, but there are so many out there. I've chosen to speak about the peppered moth. The peppered moth camouflages on the trunks of trees. And before the Industrial Revolution, the peppered moth had a white camouflage because it would live on trees that had lichen on top of them, so it was a light-colored camouflage. But during the Industrial Revolution, with the rise of pollution, soot would deposit on the trees, and the peppered moth developed a variant that was darker in color to survive on this darker, now polluted environment. And since the Clean Air Act, where pollution has now dropped, the peppered moth has returned to its white color because lichen has returned to the trees. So this is a small, but it means, well, it's a small example to us. It means everything. It is existential to the peppered moth, that it is able to adapt and use this natural intelligence to continue to exist. And we as humanity are also facing existential crises. We are facing three major ones. The first is the nature and climate one, with the effects that we're all feeling of climate change. The second is technological. And this is felt acutely with the rise of AI and this open question of how it will influence our livelihoods. And the third is the dissolution of our political and social and economic systems. It is the revolt against capitalism and the civil unrest that we see across the world. And whether it's these three existential crises that we feel that we face as humans, or the example that I used for the peppered moth, both of these changing transformational circumstances can be described in a couple of ways. So in all instances, they are very complex, they are too big for us to understand, and they are interconnected. So the rise of pollution, thanks to the Industrial Revolution, affects the color of the trees. AI might help us solve climate change because we'll make use of its ability to recognize patterns, but it's also putting a huge strain on our grid. So these are transformations that are very complex and very interconnected. There's also a high level of uncertainty, right? We don't know how climate change will impact us really. We don't know what it feels like to live in a world where the average temperature is 3 degrees higher than we're used to. So that degree of uncertainty leads to quite a high intensity of panic. And panic leads us to take a lot more risk. So our environment, the context that we are living in, is becoming riskier and riskier, and the stakes are high, right? This is why it's an existential crisis. Our way of life is going to be affected. And finally, the peppered moth and us, as we face into climate change, social economic change, and technological change, are at the mercy of powers that go beyond our individual ability to address them. So if this is a description of, macro transformational change, I'm sure you can also recognize circumstances in your own private lives that feel complex and uncertain, right? That condition of transformation is not unique to big existential things. It happens all the time. And adaptation is a perfect response to those types of circumstances. And we are adapting all the time. When it rains, you will put a rain jacket. That is a form of adaptation. So we do it always, but what's interesting is to really consider how concepts of adaptation can be applied to specific circumstances where we can become better at facing complex, interconnected, high uncertainty environments. So my pitch today is the invitation to think about concepts of adaptation as it comes to leadership. And when I say leadership, I really don't mean to alienate anyone in the room. We are all leaders, first and foremost, of ourselves, of our own desires and wants and intentions, as well as leaders in the work that we do, the people that we might lead, the visions that we have for the future. So I'm using the term leadership as a very autonomous and universal way of existing. To bring some of these concepts to life, I'll be referencing a mission that we had at Pangaia, but it's in fact a common mission across the industry now. So it was the desire to displace problematic materials for better ones, and hopefully these examples will relate to all of you as well. I'll be taking you through, very briefly, 4 lessons of adaptive leadership. I have referenced some academic research on this, so Ronald Heifetz and his colleagues did some work on articulating what adaptation meant in the context of leadership. But I've also added and swapped out some things that, in my own experience, I've found made a real difference. And what I want you to keep in mind for the rest of my presentation is adaptation and adaptive leadership is about how you think and how you behave. So I will be describing some cognitive abilities that you might want to develop in your brain or notice that you already have. These are things like how you think, how you learn, how you problem solve, as well as the behavioral abilities that you have. So how do you take a strategy and implement it? How do you behave and act in the world in a way that sets you up for adaptive challenges? The first lesson is getting on a balcony. This is a very common expectation that we have of leaders, right? For them to rise above the water and have a bird's eye view. And of course, when you're facing into challenges that are highly complex, it is very helpful to have a bird's eye view and oversight over the big picture. It's also very powerful when you don't know what the future holds to have a visionary ability, right? So we also have an expectation from our adaptive leaders that they are visionaries, that they are able to come up with ideas that don't exist today so that we can meet that uncertainty with a bit of control, right? A bit of autonomy in the direction that we're taking. But, and this is key, I have seen many leaders go wrong with this. Too many ideas that are too far from reality, ideas that people don't relate to, will go nowhere. In fact, they will probably hinder and add to the complexity of what it is that you're trying to address. So when I say get on the balcony, what I mean is hold a vision that is full of strategic imagination, but make sure that it is anchored in your reality today. And so the cognitive ability that I'm asking you to play around with and develop is this ability to switch between abstract thought and concrete thought. So to bring this to life, abstract thought is when we are at Pangaia, we are on an Earth-positive mission. We want to use Earth-positive materials that are better for the planet than if they didn't exist. This is a completely abstract concept. Earth-positive does not mean anything at all. Better materials, in fact, doesn't really mean anything either. But it is a very powerful anchor for delegation. If I tell you we are on an Earth-positive mission, that gives you something in your own little world to hang on to and act against. But the best leaders will make sure that they are also anchoring this vision into reality. So if we want to be an Earth-positive business, today we should be B Corp certified. If we want to use Earth-positive materials, today the materials should be organic, recycled. We should move from fossil fuels to bio-based. These are examples of your mind switching between abstract and concrete. And if you need something to remember it by, this picture is a perfect example of this. Your abstract mind understands that this is a banana, and your concrete mind understands the physical constraints of what a banana actually is, and all the ways that this is not a banana. Both are important. All right, the second of the four that I'll take you through is the ability to distinguish problems. This is important because the issues that we're trying to correct are complicated and hard to make sense of. If you can discern what a technical problem is versus an adaptive one, you will start to, as a leader, make sense of that complexity, and you'll meet the problems with the right resources. And that will mean like you'll put the right budget against the project, you'll put the right brain powers against the project. So an example of a technical problem is fairly easy to come up with. The world is full of them. You're trying to use a new innovative natural dye, and the color fastness doesn't behave in the way that the synthetic dyes that you're used to does. This is a technical problem. It is not easy to fix. It's going to be hard to fix, and you might not be able to fix it, but it's fairly straightforward to kind of organize your resource against this problem. An adaptive problem is you've finally worked out this color fastness issue with your dye, you've made this amazing product with it, and you've launched it in the world. And your marketing team has mislabeled and used the wrong language to describe the dye, and now your company faces greenwashing liability, and greenwashing can be really expensive. This is an example of an adaptive challenge because it deals with the system. There is a problem in your system, a lack of education for your marketing team, the need for your science team to relay information better. So adaptive problems have a lot more to do with like changing people's minds, changing people's behaviors. And as a leader, if you are not astute to the adaptive problems, you often, your best ideas are stuck in limbo. The third is to connect the dots. In the previous panel, we heard a lot about what it takes to be a creative mind. This is such a special skill, and we can think of creativity as an ability to take 2, 3, several, perhaps unrelated ideas, bring them together and place meaning on them. This is incredibly powerful because problems that are not solved today require new solutions. So you need either yourself or surround yourself with people that are generating new ideas. And the best new ideas will come from peculiar and unpredictable places. And so what you are nurturing here in yourself and in those around you is multidimensional thinking, an ability to absorb information from lots of different places or connect people from lots of different places and make sense of it. And that making sense of it is key. It is not enough just to introduce. The best introductions come with a little bit of intention, and we were definitely hearing a lot of intention in the previous panel, so hopefully that gives you a flavor of how powerful that can be. But a very short example of multidimensional thinking is this panel. I have taken a concept, adaptation, that lives in the world of biology, and I am applying it to leadership in the context of fashion. They are seemingly unrelated, but I am playing my leadership role in like forcing meaning on it because it has value as an idea to generate new solutions. And the final principle that I'll take you through today, I know it's been quite fast, but hopefully some aspects have landed. The final one is voices from below. And when you step into a position of leadership, it is such a self-centered moment that a lot of people tend to forget that your role is not to come up with all the good ideas, it is to find all the good ideas. And finding them means making sure that you are hearing from a variety of voices, including those that are maybe unconventional, dissenting, and outside of conformity. So don't go to the more senior people in your surrounding for all the answers, and make sure that you're creating an environment that invites contradiction, invites people's opinions. And one really small tip for this, it's not an example, but it's something that I'm trying to do a lot more now, is rather than, if you're in a meeting or a group of people exchanging ideas, rather than say, does everyone agree, ask the negative of that question. Does anyone disagree? Is there any reason this idea could be a bad one? And you'll find that people's sense of autonomy is a lot more alive when they have a chance to disagree. And this is where you will tend to nurture voices from lots of different perspectives. All right, that was a whirlwind tour of 4 different cognitive and behavioral abilities that you might want to nurture as adaptive leaders. Hopefully, they were either familiar to you already or new, and hopefully you are left with a couple that you want to nurture. And I will leave you with a final note, which is an invitation to think of nature not as something that we need to protect, but also as something that we can learn from. Thank you so much.